What's Jones doing on the moon? Why does he need to be in the cup checklist? I think it's so they didn't accidentally get him on film or take a picture of him. That's where he's going to be standing. I just thought it was interesting that in the cup checklist that they were using on the moon, it was the same name as the person in the videos, the inspector for the videos and the images. You dive into some of these cup checklists and they're quite amusing. How is NASA going to know in advance that here's the disturbed area, so make sure to avoid it? We're going to break open a rock, and here is what is going to be the mineral components of that rock. Pretty good. Make sure that you have the right settings, and here's the settings for the camera. Here's where the sun is going to be when you do this. Pretty precise. And then always, this goes without saying, Neil, Buzz, and all the other astronauts, make sure that when you are making or following this checklist, that you are having enthusiastic observations. These guys are on stage. These guys got to be following the script as they shoot this thing. And they launch and land on the moon, and we get to see all the pictures and video. Isn't that convenient? We can really kind of break these down and getting into some of the specifics, and I'll show you just some highlights. There appears to be an accident that happened with Apollo 15. If you look closely, you can see the damage here from the exhaust bell housing. It's crushed. And the rover broke off from its mounts. 15, 16, and 17 were the missions with the rover. Okay, and there's pieces of the lunar lander that are all around. Now this is the only mission, 15 is the only mission where we did not get to see the flag salute. I mean, the first thing that all the other missions did, the astronauts would climb out of the spacecraft, would plant the flag, salute it, it's a very patriotic moment, and that sort of thing. But 15, they didn't do that. They went on 2 EVAs, we're told, and then they came back and did the flag. I think they had to clean up the mess. Oh, what? Yeah. Where did we put that thing? You can see some of the pieces here. And if you really examine these photos that we were given, you can see that the damage from the struts, from the landing struts. And it looks like some pieces had to be replaced. Personal life support systems, PLSSs. We're told that each astronaut only had one. Okay, there was no redundancy. If you damaged your pack, you were going to be in big trouble. This is what they wore on their back. Their life support system in their suit. This cooled them, this kept them warm, and obviously provided oxygen for them. Well, when we examined these pictures, we found that there were 2 additional ones sitting here. This is from the accident. You see these 2 additional personal life support systems. Well, that guy's got to be wearing one. And the person taking the picture's got to be taking one. So there's all this extra equipment lying around. And we're told that they each only had one. These are the different rovers from each of the missions. This is 15, 16, and 17. And as you really dive in here and you start looking at these images, you'll see that the rover from each of those missions had an oil leak on the rear left tire. And it kept getting worse and worse and worse. What the conclusion that we're coming to as we examine these things is that the same equipment was used mission after mission. Okay? Now we're told that they didn't bring the rover back, they left it up there. Each mission they brought a new one along. But it appears 15, which is the first one, that it was damaged when maybe it was simulated and it was dropped, because we see the damage to the, first of all, you go back to the transcripts and you look, there was the astronauts, everything they said and everything that Mission Control said was written out. And we have transcripts of everything. There's no mention of any damage. I mean, if they had landed roughly and the rover had broken off, they probably would have talked about it, okay? If they had all these problems that were going on. There was no mention of any of this stuff. We're finding that it looks like that the rover was damaged when it broke off of its mounts during the simulated landing. And it never was the same. It never worked as it was designed. It had a lot of problems. It kept breaking down. All from the same mission, there's basically 3 different fenders, okay? There's, again, no mention of any changing of equipment. These guys didn't bring extra fenders along, okay? This is all from the same mission. You get 3 different tire tracks from the same mission. They changing tires? Okay, let's say they did. What didn't they talk about it? Hey, Houston, we're going to have to change a tire here. We blew it out. Of course, these things weren't full of air anyway, but the point is, why is there 3 different tire tracks in the same? They kept having problems with these things. This is from Apollo 17, I believe. It's the jump salute. The astronaut is actually off the ground here. He jumped up for the picture. If you zoom in on the rover in the background here, this fender is double ribbed. From all 3 missions, that's the only picture of the rover with the double ribbed fender. All the other pictures of the rover from that same mission have the single rib. Inconsistencies, lack of reconciliation. There's this video here from Apollo 16. So I think the one Rob you played, is that from Apollo 11? Okay. 69 is Apollo 11. This is from 16. Did you notice anything going on here? This one really got me want to look deeper into this. Watch it in slow motion, what happens to the side of the spacecraft here. It blew a side out when it took off. Look at these things just kind of flapping in the wind. You see the wire, the reflection off some sort of wire or strap there too? Oh, that was interesting. There was some damage that was done here. There's no mention in the transcripts of an explosion or anything like that. Something like that potentially would be devastating to the mission. Here it is, slow motion and close up. That looks space-worthy to you? These guys aren't talking about damage to the spacecraft. So this was an image that we got from before the mission. This is what it looks like in the clean room. Everything is put together in a clean room, so there's no contamination, no bacteria, whatever. This is what was behind those panels. Does that look like anything important? The electrical components and things like that, right? That side of the spacecraft blew out. Now, for evidence that they're just recycling this equipment for each of the simulations, for each of the missions, this is Apollo 16 this is on the moon before the liftoff and before the explosion. And if you find an image in Apollo 17, approximately the same angle, this is what you find. It looks like they just replaced those 4. They're a little bit of a different color. They just repaired those 4 panels and they shot 17. I don't think they had to make a new lunar lander for each mission. I just think they used the same one. But we're told it was left on the moon, at least part of it. And then some of the other highlights would be evidence of moisture on the moon. Okay? We're told that the surface of the moon is 10 times 11 to the negative 4. Okay? Moisture cannot exist. What happens even at 60 miles? Okay? You get the pressure so low that the water boils. Okay? Moisture cannot exist at that low of an air pressure. But we see mold and mildew growing on things. Okay? Here's evidence of water. Standing water. And you can see here this piece of scientific equipment. Looks like they ripped off the top of a school desk. You can see where the glue is. This is like a hastily made prop, is what it seems like to me. This looks like water to me. Look how reflective that surface is compared to others. And look at how this is peeling up from the sides. I think this is the same equipment used over and over and over. And we talk about that this was, we like to speculate that the moon landings were shot on a stage, or in a studio. I think this stuff was shot outside. I think we see evidence of aging and moisture and damage outside of the equipment. mission after mission after mission. This stuff is, each mission gets a little bit worse, more worse for wear. There's moisture here. Looks like the panel is drying. This was an image that we were given. This was somewhere like halfway between the Earth and Moon. It's like why would they have something like a rain guard for the outside of a spacecraft that's been damaged and looks like repaired with some tape? This was taken halfway to the Moon. Look at the moisture between the two panes of glass. The seal broke. We're speculating that during a pressure test, they blew a seal and moisture has got between the two panes. It's supposed to be negative 250 degrees outside. How is the moisture, how does that happen? And then there's the famous Apollo 17 image of the astronaut, the flag, and the Earth in the background. And I think this one has been staring us in the face for a very, very, very long time. Because if you zoom in on the flag, I think it's wet and been drying from the edges in. Now, you might come to a different conclusion. That flag looks wet to me. And as it's dry, I think it's left outside, and I think moisture, whether it's rain or dew or whatever, the mist of the morning, and as throughout the day, you can see it's been drying. And there's a really close-up image of it. You can see it in the red areas too, with high resolution.
First, many have doubted for 50 years now how those...
Let me set this up first real quick. I think this is the last clip. Mark Sargent's going to get a kick out of this one. It's all about the spacesuit. Okay? I think this is really the key. Okay? This is from a recent video that I did about 3 or 4 months ago, and it really analyzes the astronaut spacesuit. I think it's only about 5 minutes.
First, many have doubted for 50 years now how those white, fluffy, but bulky-looking spacesuits we are all so familiar with could withstand such a low-pressure environment and not become immediately rigid and render the astronauts completely immobile. But we must be careful when touting that whole idea as proof that the spacesuits wouldn't work, as advertised, because NASA claims to have figured that out long before astronauts allegedly stepped foot on the moon. You see, according to NASA, the astronauts actually donned 2 spacesuits, a pressurized inner suit, as seen here, which was beneath the unpressurized outer white one. So don't be quick to claim the outer white suit would balloon up as the air pressure was reduced, because, as the story goes, that part of the spacesuit wasn't even pressurized. We are told this inner pressurized spacesuit, which would still, even to this day, have to be considered a modern marvel of technology, was airtight, mostly made of neoprene, and was contained within a layer of embedded mesh-like material to keep it from expanding. Kind of like a balloon inside a bag of netting, only allowing the balloon to expand so far. Further, we're told that fingers, shoulders, knees, and elbows of this inner pressurized suit had accordion-like joints that allowed flexing without ballooning. Truly, a technological masterpiece. The outer layer, the white, unpressurized suit, was made of fireproof, abrasion-resistant material, we are told, which was designed to provide thermal insulation and protection.
Right, that's where I'm going to round out this show for you all. Unfortunately, my battery's about to run out, so I'm going to have to go back to the car and charge it. But I hope you all enjoyed Paul on the Plane. I'll hopefully bring you a bit of Sleeping Warrior next.